Aaron Rodgers lands, a lot of things are going to just completely move. And I expected things to happen very, very fast with the Russell Wilson story, with the Deshaun Watson. And by the way, Deshaun Watson is not going to be charged for any criminal charges. So what does that mean? A lot of teams will probably go after him sometime around the draft because he will be available and he's not going to jail. So that's a good sign. So if I was a team like Pittsburgh or some of the other top-end teams, I would definitely take a look at Deshaun Watson, even though he's been out of football for 2 years. But Aaron Rodgers, he was the guy. It was up to the Broncos to make a move for him. Obviously, they brought Nathaniel Hackett over there to the Broncos, and everybody thought, hey, Nathaniel Hackett's going to the Broncos, so why not Aaron Rodgers? It makes a lot of sense. There were stories coming out that Aaron Rodgers was going to re-sign. They're just negotiating a contract, and the Packers announced that he would sign the largest NFL contract in NFL history. That was $50 million, get $135 guaranteed, like he needs the money, but he's going to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. As soon as that happened, within hours, there was a story coming out from the Broncos organization that they're almost done with the trade that would send Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. Now, this wasn't something that I was surprised about. I knew the Broncos were gunning for a star quarterback. With new ownership coming in, the GM needed to make a splash. They needed to get a guy that was going to be able to play with some of the young wide receivers, make everybody better. They drafted a great young running back last year, Williams from North Carolina. Everybody thought that this team was ready to win. But then when you hear the trade, and we're going to have Lance Sanderson, the Broncos writer, he does a podcast over there in Denver. He will be joining us a little bit later in the show, and I'm sure he has his own thoughts to it, and I'm sure he thinks that this was a great trade. But to me, they gave up a lot for a guy like Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson's still 33. He has 5 good years left. I think he has a tremendous amount of talent. He makes everybody around him better. We've seen what he did with Seattle. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won 1. He was an MVP candidate almost every single year since the Super Bowl. And the guy's been a fantastic quarterback and a successful quarterback in the league. But last year, he broke his finger. He was out a significant amount of time. He came back. He wasn't the same Russell Wilson. He is a great pocket-present quarterback, but he's also very good with his legs. And as he gets older, the running ability might go out very, very quickly. But being that he's 33 years old, to give up 2 first rounds, 2 second rounds, a 5th, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, that played very, very well with the Broncos last year, got an extended contract worth about $27 million in the offseason. Drew Lock was a part of that trade, too. Drew Lock is just an add-on. He might start. It might be Geno Smith going into this draft year. Trading Russell Wilson, you're a rebuilding team. So trade DK Metcalf. They dropped Bobby Wagner, first time Bobby Wagner in his illustrious career and a Hall of Fame career, that he is going to be a free agent. He was a Pro Bowl player last year. I'm sure a lot of teams will be lining up for a star linebacker, even though he's 31, 32 years old. But this is a rebuilding year, and there's quite a few quarterbacks coming out of next year's draft class that really stand out. Seattle, if I was them, I would trade away pieces. This is Pete Carroll's last year. Let him have his last hurrah with a young team and a rebuilding team, and then Schneider, Pete Carroll, they find themselves new jobs or they retire. You bring in a new GM and a new coach with a new quarterback.
End of an era for Seattle. They went pretty strong this whole decade, won a Super Bowl, made the playoffs all but I think 1 year where they just missed on a tiebreaker to the Falcons. You could tell Russell Wilson was definitely growing year in and year out because you're right. In the beginning of that stretch, it was the defense, the Legion of Boom.
And the running game of Marshawn
Lynch too.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Since the 2015 season, though, it's been him. Marshawn Lynch got hurt that year at the beginning of that year. They had some random running backs step in and play well, but Russell Wilson, that was his best season as a pro. Doug Baldwin, his best year as a wide receiver, and they had a lot of different things going for them. And since then, it's been more of a Russell Wilson-led team. The defense has regressed. The scheme still made it seem serviceable, but it wasn't the same as the Legion of Boom, and now it's become more of an offensive team. So now, with Russell Wilson now getting hurt this year and having a lot of trouble with the front office, they're not rebuilding the offensive line. Chris Carson's been in and out with injuries, so their running game has been iffy in the last 2 years. So
how many running backs have they drafted in the first round?
Rashad Penny as well hasn't stayed healthy either. Seattle the philosophy that they had just ran out. It just got past the time. The division got better. Not that the division wasn't very good before that too, but still it steamed out to the point where, they're going to have to rebuild now. This is all those draft picks now. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and good players. Font maybe is a building
Font's
piece.
the best player in that trade.
He's the one building piece. Shelby Harris is a good player, but he's older, so I don't know how much he's going to last in Seattle just because
he's not that old. You make it seem
30
like
years
he's an
old,
old man.
30 years old.
That's not old, and he's still a talented player who was one of the best defensive players on the defensive line, which, by the way, is weak, and we're going to talk about out with Lance a little bit later in the show. I know they still have Chubb there. They lost Von Miller last year in a trade. Maybe he comes back. I don't think they could afford him. You make it seem like Shelby Harris is he's not that
for
old.
a rebuilding team for Seattle. If he has a good year, they might consider trading him just to get more pieces because they're rebuilding.
Maybe.
They're not going to win anything this year. Seattle definitely on that path now. Metcalf's as good as gone. Lockett's another piece. Chris Carson's another piece. He has a bigger contract, so he might be tougher to move. But again, they're going to try to move as many as possible, I would imagine, especially if they do bring in a new GM, which seems inevitable. I think Carroll and Schneider are attached to the hip. So again, end of an era for a very stable team for Seattle that all of a sudden just fell apart recently. As far as the Broncos, yeah, they're definitely now up there getting Russell Wilson. They've been a quarterback away since Peyton Manning retired. They had all this talent that was being wasted by just god-awful quarterback play from Paxton Lynch to now with Drew Lock. You're right, Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is a fine quarterback. Dealt with a lot of injury issues last year, too, which didn't help. So now they got the guy that is going to help them get to that next level. I still have my doubts on Hackett as a coach, just coming from the Packers, who have had coordinators struggle in other places. George Patton was the guy that more wanted Russell Wilson, thought he could be a good fit for this team, a team that has a lot of talent all around it. Are they the best team in the division? I'm not sure about that, but
the division is stacked. Kansas City, the LA Chargers, who land Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack is still a talented defensive lineman. He can get at you. You put him with Joey Bosa, two sides of the line. You add that, and then you have Derwin James coming up the middle. I think this is one of the more talented defenses in the league. They have a great offense. They have one of the best underrated running backs in Eckler. They have a talented wide receivers and tight ends. The Chargers gave up nothing for Khalil Mack. A second and a sixth. Look what Chicago had to trade for to get Khalil Mack. 3 first-round draft picks and a third. Khalil Mack is still on top of his game. Last year at 9 sacks on a defense that was supposed to be good, tremendous amount of talent. They weren't as good as everybody thought they were going to be. It was definitely the strength of the Chicago Bears, but it wasn't the Chicago Bears we knew them as. And you talk about talented players, two of the best players in their respectable positions, in Russell Wilson now going to the Broncos, and now Khalil Mack going to the LA Chargers. This is the best division in football. It's not even an argument. It's not even a question. Kansas City is going to have to figure things out because they gave Patrick Mahomes a $550 million contract. Are they going to bring back the Honey Badger? There are certain other defensive players that they're going to have to decide if they're going to bring back or they're going to drop or waive them. So there's so much going on in this division, but arguably the best division in football.
Oh, it's definitely the best division in football now. Solidified that. And it's going to be an interesting discrepancy. We were talking about it with the Super Bowl. The Rams and the Bengals, two teams that went through all quick fixes, and the Chiefs now are going to have to go through that this year because they're going to lose a lot of defensive players, and their running back situation is still iffy as well, but they still have the coaching to make that kind of thing work. The Broncos and the Chargers both have very good balance throughout their roster. The Chargers really only have one major weakness, and it's the interior defensive line. Third worst run defense last year. But they have talented linebackers and safeties, though, too. So it's really just the interior, the beef of that interior defensive line, because the outside rush is excellent now. Joey Bosa is their best pass rusher, and Khalil Mack's not far behind.
Khalil Mack is the best pass rusher on that team. How could you put Joey Bosa in front of Khalil Mack? Khalil Mack has been the best or one of the top 3 best pass rushers in the league. Joey Bosa can't even stay on the field with health. You're going to put him in front of Khalil Mack? You're on drugs.
You got Derwin James. You got Asante Samuel Jr., who played very well last year. You still got Chris Harris. Offensively, they're very balanced. They probably need a tight end they can find later in the draft. And then Eckler, one of the best running backs, best pass-catching running back in the league right now. A lot of depth with the wide receivers. People are mocking wide receivers to them in drafts, and I don't get it. I know Keenan Allen's older, but they have Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton's a nice receiver, Josh Palmer. They got a lot of weapons over there with the Chargers. Very balanced team, and so are the Broncos. The Broncos need probably a little more offensive line and defensive line, but beyond that, they're pretty much set. So it'll be interesting to see if balance will win out in this division or the Chiefs with the coaching and the star power will win out more.
I think it's going to be very fun to watch, and I expect more trades to happen. There are still a lot of players being dangled around, and Seattle looks like a team that is a trade partner with almost any other team. DK Metcalf is as good as gone. Teams would be very interested in Tyler Lockett, who's still around a good age to bring in a wide receiver. You could put him in a slot. You could put him on the outside. Maybe the Broncos make a move for one of those guys. They have a lot of pieces over there that they could trade back to Seattle. I was very surprised that Seattle wasn't looking for a swap for a wide receiver in that trade, but you gave up a lot for Russell Wilson. But Russell Wilson could definitely put you on the top of the league, especially with his talent. Now, the question is Russell Wilson the same Russell Wilson he was when he was with Seattle before he hurt his finger? Now, I do believe Russell Wilson was not the same quarterback in the second half because of his finger. He came back too fast. When you look at the AFC, we talk about how strong the NFC was and how the NFC has been the powerhouse throughout the NFL. It's no longer the NFC. It is the AFC.
It is.
It's not even an argument. When you look at the powerhouse teams, Buffalo's still there. New England's getting better. Pittsburgh if they get a quarterback, they're going to be up there again this year with their defense. Had a couple players retire too. And then there's Baltimore, who has a lot of money and has a lot of opportunity to bring in free agents. The Cincinnati Bengals that are fantastic as well. And that's not going through all the other divisions right now in the AFC.
The AFC South is really the only one that's weak, and the Titans and Colts are still both good teams. Jacksonville should get better.
If the Colts get a quarterback, they're going to be dangerous.
Yeah, they are, and they have a lot of money in order to do that. Now with the Carson Wentz trade, they have $69 million in cap space. The AFC North, the AFC West is all loaded. And for the NFC, the only division that's really loaded is the NFC West, but now Seattle got significantly weaker, so all of the other divisions are top-heavy. It's weird to see this kind of shift just all at once.
If you guys didn't check out the Combine, fantastic. The fastest wide receivers of all time running the 40. One of the fastest times for a corner to run in the 40 as well. A defensive lineman in Davis from Georgia that ran a 4.78, 340-pound guy. Anybody that is that big that can run a 4.78 at the Combine, a 40, he can run through a car. He can run through a train. This guy is going to be a beast of a man. He definitely is going to move up in the draft. He was looked at as possibly an early 20s pick. Now you're talking about early teen. Absolutely ridiculous what we saw at the Combine. The draft a month and a half away. Free agency that opens up next week. It's going to be really, really fun.
Jordan Davis and a lot of these other offensive linemen, too. They're all fast now. 12
Look at the
offensive
linemen,
and defensive linemen, all running that. That's the wave of the league now. And you're seeing with all these just athletic big guys. We talk about it in the NBA, all these big men that could shoot. All these
They're not
big men that
350
could
pounds of
no,
fat.
No. The NFL, it's even more impressive when you see how well these big guys move now on the offensive and defensive line. And
Speedy, you're a thin little rail, and you couldn't outrun these guys. I could probably right now run a 40. It's somewhere in the low fives. I'm not in football shape or anything like that.
Right.
But when I was in high school, I could run in a 4.4, 4.5. I was very fast. Track and field runner. I was all-state runner. I can't do that anymore, especially with my hip surgery, all the injuries that I've had. I can't do that anymore. But it's fantastic what you see some of these young players are doing right now, and it just shows you the growth of the athletics here in the United States.